Hi there, welcome to 31 Days of Halloween Down the Red Rabbit Hole. I'm crime author Pam Lecky, and today I'd like to share some extracts from a spooky short story entitled The Lighthouse Keeper. Sally and Alex are on their first holiday together. Things aren't going well, they're staying in this creepy old lighthouse, and Sally has gone to bed on her own. Sally lay rigid, her heart thumping. There it was again, a cranking sound, followed by footsteps on the floor above. The bedroom was almost in complete darkness, but for the twisted shadow of the metal steps visible on the far wall. Alex must have left the light on downstairs in the sitting room. She groped for her phone on the locker. It was 2:10. She felt the sheet on the other side of the bed. It was cold. What on earth was Alex doing up in the lamp room? A loud snore broke the silence, but it came from the sitting room below. That didn't make any sense. Was she half asleep? When she found the switch for the bedside lamp, she flicked it on. She pushed back the duvet, grabbed her jumper, pulled it over her head, and went halfway down the steps into the sitting room. Sure enough, Alex was sound asleep where she'd left him. She went back upstairs and jumped under the duvet, jumper and all, because she couldn't stop shaking. Her imagination was playing tricks. Strange place, strange bed, that would account for it. She turned off the light, thumped her pillow, and tried to subdue her disappointment. So much for romance. Still better to find out what he was like now. She made up her mind that she would not go with him tomorrow when he went sailing. She'd spend the day down in the harbour exploring the shops. As the sleepless minutes slipped by, she became aware of the wind picking up, a lonely, plaintive sound, making her uneasy. No wonder her mind was playing tricks. From now on, she would stick to admiring lighthouses from the outside. Then the floorboards above creaked. Then there were footsteps, and the sound of something being dragged across the floor. Suddenly, Sally's body was humming with adrenaline, and she broke out in a cold sweat. Her senses were straining, and all at once the overpowering smell of kerosene pervaded the room. Terrified, she couldn't move. The sound of metal scraping against metal sent a shiver down her spine. To her horror, as she watched, a powerful beam of light flitted across the opening to the upper level. Impossible, a voice inside her head said, but there it was again, a sweep of light that lit the room with an intensity that hurt her eyes. Sally bolted from the bed, almost tripping down the steps in her haste. "Wake up, Alex, wake up!" He groaned. "What the hell, Sally? I was fast asleep." "The lighthouse, it's working, there's someone up there." "Don't be daft, Sal. This place was decommissioned years ago," Alex said. "You must have had a nightmare." "I didn't imagine it, Alex. I heard footsteps and noises, and then I saw the light." Alex stood uncertain, then suddenly grinned. "Must have been those prawns you ate, eh?" It's the next day, and Alex has gone sailing with a friend. Sally is left alone and too nervous to stay in the lighthouse, so she seeks refuge in the harbour cafe. "There we go," the cafe owner said, placing a steaming cup before her. "Don't you be worrying. I'm sure they will have taken shelter somewhere with this storm." "Are you just here for the weekend?" he asked. "Yes, we're staying out at Black's Bay." "Ah, one of those nice holiday homes. They're very popular," he said. No, there was no availability. Alex arranged for us to stay at the Lighthouse." Oh, the owner exclaimed, paling visibly. I didn't think it was let out anymore. Why did you say oh like that? No reason, he said, suddenly very interested in the road outside. Is there something I should know? She probed. The man flicked his gaze around the room and then lowered his voice. That place has a bad history, that's all. Hard to know what's fact and what's fiction. I'm sure it's fine for a night or two. But you wouldn't stay in it, am I right? She asked. It has a bit of a reputation, he said. For what, exactly? Well, you know how these things get blown out of proportion. Silly folks say things when they've had a few drinks. Sally tilted her head. Please, just tell me. The owner sat back in his chair with a sigh. Well, if you must. The Lighthouse was decommissioned in the early 1890s after an incident in Black's Bay. A ship went aground and many on board died. It was said the lighthouse keeper fell asleep on the job and the lamp went out. It was around the time the electric came in, so they closed it all down and built a more modern beacon on the next headland. Oh, what happened to the poor lighthouse keeper? Well, it was said that his wife was on board the ship that went down. He threw himself from the lighthouse gallery when he found out. Oh no, that's awful. Yes, a tragedy. Since then, it's claimed, well, some say he never left. On stormy nights, people have sworn they have seen the lights sweeping the bay. People reckon his ghost is trying to warn sailors of the danger. Sally felt her blood run cold. Are you all right? You've gone very white, the man said. I thought I saw and heard something last night, but I'm fairly sure it was a bad dream. The man nodded, but looked at her with a strange expression. Of course, sure. There's no such thing as ghosts. It's later that evening. Alex, there is no sign of him at all, and Sally begins to fear the worst. The Coast Guard has been called, but again, no word has come through. Back at the lighthouse, Sally fell into a dreamless sleep, but suddenly jolted awake and lay for several seconds in confusion. The room felt icy cold. Shaking her head, she eased into a sitting position, and then she saw him. Alex, sitting opposite. Stunned, she could only stare at him. But then she noticed he was wet, soaking wet. A dark puddle had formed on the floor at his feet. His head was in his hands. She sat forward. My God, Alex, what happened? Where have you been? I've been so worried. Slowly, he raised his head and looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. I'm so sorry. I've let you down. No, I'm just glad you're safe. But you're wringing wet. You must change before you catch pneumonia, she said. He rose up from the chair. Do you need any help? She asked. He shook his head and slowly climbed the stairs. Sally raced down to the kitchen and put the kettle on. A hot whiskey would help him feel more the thing. But how had he got back? Had the Coast Guard brought him? And she'd forgotten to ask about his horrible friend. As she waited for the kettle to boil, she listened intently, but there was no sound coming from upstairs. Once it had boiled, she grabbed the kettle and brought it upstairs. I'm making you a hot toddy, Alex. Come down as soon as you're ready, she called up. She mixed the drink and waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. What was keeping him? Eventually her patience ran out and up she went. But he wasn't in the bedroom and the bathroom was in darkness. As she turned, she noticed wet footprints on the floor leading over to the stairs to the lamp room. She stood uncertain at the bottom, looking up. Why on earth would he go up there? But when she reached it, the lamp room was in darkness and it was empty. The gallery outside was also empty. Alex had vanished. It was then she remembered the front door was locked and the key was still in her pocket. A month later. It was the day after the funeral. Much to her relief, her father had stayed with her. It had been awful, as she had feared. Having thoroughly dissected it all, they sat over the remains of their breakfast. "Did you ever read that book I sent you?" her father asked. "If you're finished with it, I wouldn't mind reading it myself." "I couldn't bring myself to." "Okay, love, I can understand that," he said. "I'm not sure where it is. I'll look it out and bring it home with me next week." Later that afternoon, after seeing her father off, Sally looked around the sitting room, trying to remember where the book about Black's Bay was. Eventually she found it. Honestly, only if her dad had bought it for her, she would have thrown it in the bin. With a sigh, she opened it and reluctantly began to read. Within minutes, she was transported back to that awful lighthouse on Black's Bay. Over the centuries, countless souls had been lost at sea, so tragically close to land. The strangely shaped rocks she had seen on the beach were known locally as Black's Fingers, and were the cause of all the trouble, as they lay in wait beneath the water for any unsuspecting sailor. Eventually, a group of local landlords had paid for the erection of the lighthouse and employed a local man as keeper. Jonas Armstrong kept the lamp lit and was heralded as a hero by the locals. It was reckoned his dedication to his duty had saved countless lives, until one night, after 3 days and nights of high winds and stormy seas, during which he had valiantly manned the light, he succumbed to exhaustion. The light went out. In the bay below, the ship bearing his wife and son ran aground on the rocks, and only a handful survived. As the cafe owner had recounted, Jonas was so distressed on learning the news, he threw himself to his death from the lighthouse. Several more pages told of suspected sightings of Jonas or the beam of light in the intervening years, particularly just before a storm hit. The last few pages were an appendix, chronological list of those who lost their lives in Black's Bay. Sally sifted through the pages, noting some of the names and dates. When she reached the last page, she stared at it in disbelief. Before her eyes, 2 faint entries began to form. And her disbelief turned to horror as the name Douglas Hatchett, Alex's friend, began to form as if an invisible hand was at work. With agonizing slowness, the last entry appeared. Alex Vine, aged 32, claimed by the sea, August 2025. Hi, sadly that's all we have time for. I hope you enjoy the Lighthouse Keeper's story. I'd like to thank you for being with me in this dark little hole and to remind you to follow Red Rabbit on social media. Do subscribe, it costs nothing, and it does make a big difference to the podcast and its fabulous hosts, Envy Peacock and Lisa Shepherd. You can find my links in the show notes, So please do take a look at my books. And of course, a very happy Halloween.